Does the glare hurt your eyes?
This is a LEADVILLE podcast.
It's just good that I was wearing a helmet.
Boom. Everything goes everywhere.
Bikes just boom, boom, boom. It's like you're in the median.
I need to bike more.
I can't breathe. Is that normal?
One, I think I might die.
But I need you to eat. You got to eat.
Everything on the menu I would like.
I thought I was going to die.
Nice.
Does the glare hurt your eyes?
You got to restart the clock?
We good? I don't know if this one will be a full hour because you guys probably are going to get bored. But, man, overarching, Scott's going to probably have to interject in a lot of this.
Yeah.
This was it's a tall task and would have been even taller. And I didn't realize how much went into this other than me just riding a bike.
Yeah.
You know, like the crew, like having a crew, an incredible crew. Matt Cherie came out. It was awesome. Adam from Specialized, the Potters, Sam and Karna and their kids, the Curtises helping out, Dave Curtis helping. My wife showed up, which, you know, she's seen CrossFit for so many years. She was like on edge nerve-wise because, I mean, this is a tall task. And I you know, she was nervous every time I'd go out to ride my bike, and I'd get random text messages on my bike. Hey, 50 miles is too many in this heat. You know, are you going? You know, like Angelo texted me one day and is like, hey, you shouldn't be riding by yourself. That's dangerous. And I'm like, okay, Hillary. Because, I mean, I'd get texts like that all the time. And, you know, just things I don't even think about. Like, I don't even question.
Yeah.
It's just not in my – it's just not how I was brought up, you know. Like, it's just – it's just good that I was wearing a helmet, you know?
Listen to presidential biographies and just zoom down the road.
I was up to 8. I'm through Martin Van Buren, you know, like I got in a lot of this training. I did a lot of reading and I learned a lot, you know, about myself and about presidents and about this country. And so, like, this is just a long snapshot put into one weekend, but man,
you're looking at that thing. But hold on, before we even get going, so this is a LEADVILLE podcast, and so probably some people are like they've either seen it on Instagram, maybe they never heard of it. So like, it's a very famous race, right? Like there's a century ride on a street bike is a big deal. Yeah, a street or
road bike,
100 miles on a mountain bike is a real big deal. And there's things all over the country and world where people do this, but LEADVILLE is like the junk.
Yeah, man. I don't really. We were trying to trace it back to where it all started. I think it was last year at Amarillo. Dave Curtis, good friend of ours, has helped us kill elk. Just a good all-around dude. NZ campers, all that. He was, I think, at Amarillo, was like, hey, you guys should do LEADVILLE. I'm like, what the hell is LEADVILLE? You know, like the LEADVILLE 100. And so, man, you know, I'm like, yeah, heck yeah, I'll do it. And so this year, we signed up. We got in through First Descents. You know, there's 1,800 riders. It's really hard to get in. You either get in through a lottery, you get in through a qualifier. Ain't nobody got time for that. Michael Arthur, who did it with us, board member for Mayhem Mission, him and his wife, Christy, huge supporters of Mayhem Mission, super passionate, helpful, finds that there's a way in through a charity. Reaches out to one charity, they kind of turn us down or push us off, reaches out to First Descents, which does outdoor activities and adventures for people with cancer or life-altering diseases. And so incredible. They were awesome. They're like, yeah, sure. We got 3 spots. Here's 3 spots. You have to raise, I think it's $3,500 basically. We pulled it all together as a Mayhem team, me, Curtis, and Arthur. We brought on Spencer Cavanis through Amarillo kind of too, but he wasn't with our First Descents team. He was going from the whites, the true whites. And so
got the shirt.
Got the shirt. Yep. So I think we'll probably still have these shirts for sale, but all that money goes to First Descents towards raising money for. We already hit our goal, and we put our money in, and then anything else on top is icing on the cake.
And to keep putting in perspective, like a lot of these ultra endurance races are just like a couple of psychos got together and like, oh, you know what would be cool? Like, have you ever read Born to Run? Okay, it's the same concept, but for like ultra runners, and there is an ultra running version of this as well.
It's this weekend.
But the bottom line
Adam
is
Klink's
like,
done it, or is doing it.
Yes, that's right. He's second attempt at it.
Yep.
They're like, first of all, it's at LEADVILLE, Colorado is at 10,000 feet.
10,200 feet. You start out at 10,200, and you go down, I think, to like 9,600 feet.
Anyone who hasn't been to elevation, it's hard to understand. I had ever been until we went elk hunting, and the first night I was telling him I was trying to go to sleep. I couldn't catch my breath laying in bed.
Yeah.
Like I would like.
Hillary, the first night she got their flights. I'm not going to trash American Airlines on this podcast, but American Airlines sucks. But anyway, through whatever, she got there Ben went and got her at 9 o'clock at night. The night before the race, it was an hour drive back to their Airbnb. So she got there at 10 or 9:30 or whatever it was. And she's like putting her bag up, and I'm laying in bed trying to go sleep. She's like, I can't breathe. Is that normal? I'm like, yeah, it's completely normal.
Yeah.
And now we're about to race at it.
Yeah.
And so, you know what? We had a lot of people. So the race, you need to go watch one of the best documentaries, I think, because it's got Lance Armstrong, which is gives you an idea because he's a, you know,
Legend
say
on a
what
bike.
you want.
He's a legend on a bike.
Say what you want about the dude.
Yeah.
He won the Tour de France a bunch of times. He did this race. He said it's one of the hardest things he's ever done racing-wise. And they did a documentary back in 2010-ish, maybe, and it kind of explains the history. There's a bunch of other ones out there, and we'll probably do a little bit of justice to the whole deal. Ben actually interviewed the race director that started it, the founder of the race. And basically, this race series has kept the town of Leadville alive. Like, it was a mining community, and then the mines shut down, and so to save it, they started this race and this kind of race series. So.
Yeah, the run is 40 years going now, and the bike, this was the 29th year.
Yeah, and so there's a guy there who's done all 29, which is impressive. So
he wheelied across the finish line.
across the finish line,
As you do.
So the kind of idea was, you know, sparked back in Amarillo last year, and so I'm like, yeah, we'll do it. And so this year, you know, I'll ride the bike, you know, 2 or 3 times a week and then just kind of supplement with CrossFit. Well, then I watched that race across the sky and I'm like, oh,
I need to bike more.
I need to actually bike more. If I want sub 9, like, this is a real deal. And then
Because there's 1 or 2 benchmarks, 9 or 12, right?
9 or 12.
Yeah.
So 9, you get
Bam, this piece.
this.
Spoiler alert, he got it.
12, you get a smaller one, but still a belt buckle. It's cool. Like, it's a cool prize to finish that. You're like, all right,
sure.
You know? And so I'm like, oh, all right, and so I luckily had a bunch of good people to help. Thad helped a ton here in Cookeville. Took me to some like random kind of like different spots to shake it up, to change it up. Had a bunch of help from Matt Chan. Reached out to him early on because I knew he had done it, and he was like, "Oh, what's your goal?" And I'm like, "The belt buckle." He's like, "Okay, cool." You know, it's kind of talking through, and then a couple days later, I'm like, "You know, I meant the big belt buckle." And he's like, "Oh, okay, that changes some things." And so I'm like, "Oh man," so I got to ride more, and so basically from late May, early June till I forgot how many days, but there's I think 3 days that I did not ride my bike at least an hour.
Wow.
So put in some miles. I think me and Curtis and Arthur had a challenge from, hold on, let me find it. From June 12th maybe to August 12th of who would ride the most miles. And it's a little bit hard to put into perspective because you know,
different
some
trails and
miles
stuff,
and roads. It really is. You're just looking at time in the seat or time in the saddle. I mean, I'm a bike rider now, so. But you know, we just did a miles thing, and I've ridden 1,004 miles since June 12th, which is a lot.
Yeah, I've not driven that far.
And honestly, I loved. It was a different challenge. It was just something else to like. You know, these guys were grinding, and I knew I wasn't going to be grinding for the game, so I've got to have something to feel like I'm doing something.
Yeah.
Like it's just how I'm wired.
Yeah.
To kind of put it in perspective, are you on the mountain bike text thread?
Yeah.
Okay, so on the mountain bike text thread, obviously.
You got all these jackasses that ride. There's like 20 of them, and not one of them rode from June 12th to August 12th, I don't think.
Well, but before that, people will send like they'll send their little Garmin thing. It's like, I did 15 miles today. I did that today. And then all of a sudden, like Arthur and Curtis and Rich start saying like, oh, I rode 50 miler. Yeah, exactly. And that's when everybody kind of started to pipe down, and they're like, okay.
But nobody rode after that. Like literally since we did the Mayhem on the Mountain, I don't think anybody's ridden with me. You once or twice maybe.
Yeah. We had a thing going.
Thad, luckily, Thad was a good riding partner. He rode with me. I think Justin Garcia showed up one day on July 4th. You showed up for a couple hours on that. Not many. But Thad was kind of my lean into.
There was like a 38-day period before the CrossFit Games where we didn't really leave our computer screens.
Yeah, you're exempt, but you almost snuck into the race.
Bro, and I'll tell you what stopped me is seeing what you guys were doing, seeing your miles, and then seeing like I never expect to be side by side with you, but like I'm like, I cover the same distance. And once I started seeing 50 miles and you guys going hard, I was like, I'm not there.
That's what. And I told him this when we saw like how he did when he finished. Madison asked me, she's like, how long do you think it would take you to do that? I go, if I could do it. One, I think I might die towards the back end of it because I would just just the nutrition thing. I would just struggle with that. I don't know what to do. Like she was just asking like if I got hopped on a bike that moment and just started riding, how long I think it would take me. I go, well, if I got the nutrition right, I go, if I could do it under 12 hours, I'd be really, really surprised. He's like, really? And I'm like, he's been riding so much. So I understand what you're saying, like getting scared by how much he's prepping for it.
And I've done a 100-miler, and it was same for me. Like that was the most difficult thing I've ever done in my life. And the highest point on that was the highest point in Alabama, which is like 5,000 maybe. And it was crazy. It was brutal. You know, it's just a grind for a long time.
What should you be eating to reach your goals? The experts at RP Strength have it down to a science. Answer a few questions about your goals, activity level, and lifestyle, and the RP Diet app takes care of the rest. Get a year of nutrition help from RP Strength and RP Diet app for only $89.99 at www.rp.app/code/Froning. What I'll say is to try to ride every day is what I was doing. It takes a lot of help from like people that like mechanics, you know, like with Hillary would be fine with me going out for an hour or two or whatever. It was like a normal training session is the way I looked at it. So I kept kind of my CrossFit-ish schedule of instead, but I would replace a training session, whatever a normal training session would be, with a ride. And so I am interested to kind of look back and put all this down on paper to see, you know, like what I would have changed. There's some things, and like it took a little bit of like a time, like an adjustment time to build to those miles. Like at first I'd be just like crushed by 30 or 40 miles to where I wouldn't want to do any other fitness. And then towards the end, I'm like, I do 50 miles and I'm like, oh, I can go squat again, you know, or whatever.
It's crazy,
it did take a ton of pressure off my knee, which has been nice. My knees felt great. So we'll see about once getting back into all the squatting and stuff, what that does. Because I laid off quite a bit.
Catching like 275 squat cleans a couple times a week.
I just, you know, I don't know what the future of that'll be. If I'll just maybe, you know, do more power-ish lifts and then squat under control more, because the knee just feels good. Like I feel like I, you know, did a couple years ago. So that's one thing I'm going to watch. But it was interesting to see that my fitness didn't fall off that too bad, you know, like I feel I didn't lose a ton of weight, honestly. Like everybody's like, oh, you're gonna lose all this weight. I didn't really lose that much. I probably leaned out a little bit, maybe.
Yeah, for sure.
Hold on, that's interesting. How much weight did you lose? Because you were the one that was complaining for a little while. You were saying
so initially I got down to like 185, 187, but then I like
bumped back up
to like 192. You know, like it just is what it is. So I probably look a little smaller, but
just a lot leaner, probably because you're just burning calories.
And so I'm gonna have to dial that back with nutrition. But I'll probably keep up 3 to 4 times a week of riding. I've really enjoyed it. Maybe not the miles, but man, it's fun to get out in the woods and do something. And I've like kind of become a bike nerd because of Thad with a single speed. And like at Cane Creek, a single speed is awesome because you can just hammer it. Out here, single speed's not that much fun, and I definitely would not want to do a single speed on that elevation chart. We might just leave the elevation chart up the whole time we're talking so people can see how insane this is. But man, it was a grind. It was a different kind of grind. Like I said, I never really got tired of riding until the last week or so, and I'm just kind of like, all right, I'm over this. And it's so hot and humid here, and we'll come back to that. But what I did like, I guess, is like being hot and humid on a bike is way different than being hot and humid stuck in here in the barn with a barbell. And like your hands are just like, my intensity would be limited in the barn by how sweaty I am. Out on the bike, it alter the intensity a little bit, but not nearly as much. Like the hard part was like staying cool enough that I didn't overheat.
Tell me this. You go to the CrossFit games and like you can barely walk without signing everybody's t-shirt. What was there hype? Was there recognition? Like,
man, it was surprisingly like cool that random, I'd be like, you'd hear, oh, there's Rich. Hey, Rich. From the minute we started, like Scott was there. Do you remember this? The guy's like, oh, Rich, like, you know, like talking or whatever.
Yeah, in the car.
At the car, like all over. And then randomly on the trail, it'd be like, oh, Rich, here you go, Rich. You're like in the crew areas, like the aid stations, multiple people. As I would pass people, oh, Rich, good job.
Nice.
As, you know, I'd pass people going this way. Oh, hey, Rich, you know, they're like, what? Where's your goal? How you doing on it? And blah, blah. Met these 2 cool dudes, brother-in-laws from Utah. And, man, super just like, it reminded me of the turtle from Finding Nemo. He's like, hey, dude, Rich, what's up, man? Hey, you need sub 9? Stick on this guy's wheel. His goal's 8:30. You know, like that's kind of your pace. I mean, super just like we start going down pipeline, and I wasn't being timid by any means, but you're like trying to like navigate people. It's like, dude, no, you just gotta go. He's like, let's go, let's rip, you know, and we're hammering down power line. I mean, and if you don't understand half of this, you won't understand half of this. You got to go. There's a couple documentaries. We'll have some. You're doing a little bit of a more long form documentary for this, but Powerline is like you can see it on this front half that it's pointing. You're going down that, and you're just hauling.
It's like going down a ski hill, basically.
And it's not necessarily single track. There's like two. It's like a Jeep trail, and there's trash in the middle. And so you're trying to figure out lanes and navigate people. And like there's some people that are like literally just on the brakes the whole time. And there's some like myself and this guy, he's like just hammering. And there's risk reward type, you know? And so I yard sail. Yeah. Like I tried to cross over to one of the other spots because somebody was in my lane. And so as I did, I caught a rock.
Boom. Everything goes
bottles,
everywhere.
Computer. I'm like checking, making sure fingers, toes, everything's are intact. And I'm like, I've got some skins on the elbows, but it didn't hurt that bad. I'm like, okay, we're good. Bikes just boom, boom, boom. It's like you're in the median, and I'm like grabbing my shit, and everybody's like, "You all right? You all right?" I'm like, "I'm fine, I'm fine." Catch back up to the guy, tell him that I, ate it, and then we get to the road. He's like, "Hey, bro, let's work together. Hop on my wheel. Save those watts, man." We turned into like this 20-person Peloton. We're pulling like 30 miles an hour on a mountain bike, and dude, but so cool. He's like, "Hey, I'm peeling off. You take 30. Oh, hey, pull it back a little bit. You're gonna lose us. All right, pull on back." And then, dude, it was awesome.
Yeah, that's so. It was more of like, yes, it's a race, but it's like
a race.
Everyone's racing yourself,
because you don't know who you're racing because it's a wave start. We started at 6:42:30. We were in the blue corrals right before white. I thought we were going to be in white. We were in blue. And so basically we rode from our Airbnb to the start line. It's 3 miles. It was a good warm up. With altitude, what I learned, get that first kick in the gut out of the way, and then you're fine.
Yeah.
Dude, I was so nervous coming up to this thing. It was like CrossFit Games dread. Like seriously, like no sleep, all this for 3 days. My whoop the day before was 7%. Yeah. The day of was 39%. But so you pull up to this and you're just like building it up in your head, and you've got all these corrals. It's kind of dark. It's cold. And 6:30 shotgun start. That's the pros. They're going. And then every 2.5 minutes, you move up and you move up and you move up, and then you go. And so you don't know who you're racing, I should say. And so but everybody's super supportive. The bike community, like obviously you got a couple people like that get angry about, getting cut off, and it happens. Like you're in such a big group and you're trying to and I don't know the etiquette, and it is a race. When you get down to it, it is a race. Yeah. But it's more of like a community, like it's different. You want to push each other to like, what's your goal? Sub 9. You're like, we're not going to beat the pros. Some guy rode 5 hours and 42 minutes.
Yeah, I mean,
40 something.
That's what I was going to say. There's something to be said.
So you see this giant pink bump in the middle? Yeah. I was at basically where that arrow, I was past the arrow. I was in like that little lull before that start as the guy is coming down that mountain.
Oh my God.
Because it goes out and back.
Yeah, so you go up to that, it's a 52 miles out, 52 miles back. He was coming down that very sharp pinkish. Wow. As I was starting up that hill. So you talk about like, that'll check your ego real quick. You're like, all right, I'm not that much of a badass.
What was funny, like the race that we did in Alabama, there was a 60 miler, and obviously the 100 miler started first because theoretically you're gonna be gone. Yeah. Well, dude, of course I wasn't. Oh yeah, like way before the 30-mile turnaround, and they go by you like. I thought they had motors on their bikes. I was like, they're going uphill in a way where you're like, holy shit, like. Couldn't even wrap my head around like what they were doing because I was just like constant grind.
Yeah, you're like I'm in the lowest gear. I'm pulling. I'm going good. And then they're like,
let me back up.
Like you're standing still. It was wild.
Let me back up because we're getting too race. I want to talk about getting out there because everybody's like, there was so much talk of, well, he's not going to do it because he's not an altitude. Was there though? Dude, how many comments do we have
on the
everywhere?
Day in the Life video? There's so many comments about.
I love it. I love
if you're not already out there, you're screwed. If you don't get out there, 2 weeks,
and I'm like, and I'd read a bunch of like studies and stuff talking about humidity and how it helps your your hemoglobin and all this. There's all like nerd stuff. Yeah. And I'm not going to compare it apples to apples because it's not the same.
Not the same.
However, what I will say is I feel like training in humidity and training hills and all that stuff helped me immensely. The first day we got out there, I wanted to kill Curtis, but I also need to thank him because it's exactly what we needed to do. We got out there on Wednesday, midday-ish?
Yeah, it was
got our bikes together.
Early afternoon.
My rotor was bent, so I have a ton of like drag every time it spins. It's like you usually can spin the tire and it just sits there and spins. Yeah. It would get 2 turns before it stopped.
Oh man!
And so we're like, whatever, we'll go ride. So we go ride, but we ride this just well, not just. You ride out of town. We ride up to St. Kevin's, you can see, down the hill, up to Sugarloaf, down Powerline, and then back to the Airbnb. It was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. Not really. Top 5.
It was within 2 hours of, not 3-4 hours of landing.
Yeah. And Curtis, like, this is a medium ride. St. Kevin's is kind of the, you know, it's the first part of the race. It's not blah, blah, blah. Like, I get to the top, and Curtis was choking. He's like, I heard your breathing. And I'm like, do I sound like that? Because, I mean.
But he lives up there.
He lives up there.
He's like a Sherpa.
And we literally, and, like, he does. So what's Curtis can, like, he knows this thing like the back of his hand. He lives a mile from Columbine or less or more, but slightly over. So he trains on this a lot. So having his knowledge of, like, what to do. But he's like, oh, St. Kevin's isn't that bad, blah, blah, blah. And
we get to the top now.
And, like, we're waiting for Arthur for a little bit, and he's like, I forget. That's probably the top 4 worst climb in this thing. And I'm like, okay, well, at least there's that. But I'm like, I'm telling you, like, I thought I was going to die.
Yeah. Heart rate all over the place.
No, you look back on the heart rate, and it's nothing. You think it is because you can't breathe. Your heart rate was like, my heart rate was like 170, which is normal for a climb right here. Yeah, right? So then we go up a little higher, and you think you're at the top of St. Kevin's. You're not. You have to go up to the top. Go up to the top, and we come down on this road, and it's kind of nice. And then you start coming up this climb. The orangish part of the next part is kind of like it's road for part of it, and then like gravel road. And you're like, okay, all right. Well, then that red portion right there is super steep, and it's like dirt that they've just jammed rocks in. And then they've thrown a couple rocks that are like not the ones that you can ride over. There's no line. And so you're like, oh, there's a line. Okay, I'm going to go back over because there's a better line. No, there's no line there. And so for like
kind of like switchbacks, where it's like
worse than switchback because there's just rocks everywhere.
But it's at least a straight line. Kind of.
No.
I'm saying you're weaving, but like you're going in one direction. You don't have to like turn all the way. Okay.
You have to turn. It's
there's
awful.
no redeeming features.
And so Curtis, we were like, because and the worst part probably that makes this is like Curtis is going and I'm here. And so like we're just kind of like, not on purpose, and I don't want to be the guy that's like, we're not wheeling each other, but we are, because he's not going to like, let me win, and I'm not going to like fall too far behind, and then I'll go behind. Like, and so that probably added to a lot of this. And so, we would ride for a lot, and then Arthur, we'd wait for 2 or 3 minutes tops. But like me and Arthur are looking at each other. And as we're going through this like rocky whatever stuff, Kurt's like, oh, we're almost out of the rocks. And then we'd come around a bend, and it'd be kind of like sandy, kind of whatever, and then you're right back in those rocks. Yeah. And it was awful. Like, I had nightmares about this whole part of the, like, I can't tell you how like nervous I was for the next 3 days. I had almost given up like the thought of 9 hours and was going to be okay with 12 hours. And I was worried that Arthur was going to have a heart attack.
Well, and it's because the unknown too, right?
You don't know.
You have no idea what's coming.
You don't know what you're coming into.
It's even cool that you guys got to the beginning.
This was huge. Yeah. Like, I'm telling you, huge and also scary at the same point. So then we hit Powerline. Powerline's awesome. It's just straight downhill. I mean, you see that going down. Yeah. But then you turn back and look at it, and you're like, I've got to go back up that at mile 70, 5 or 80 or whatever it is. It's, because everybody's like, oh, hey, the race doesn't start till Powerline on the way back. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. And then you get there and you're like, oh, no. Like I got a flat coming down Powerline. Like I hear tss, 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 tss every time on the first time. So then that's in your head. You're like, dang, what if I do that on race day? And we patch it up, ride the rest of the way. We go back to the Airbnb, and me and Arthur, like I had a cough. Like my lungs were deteriorating underneath me. I was starting to feel like flu-y kind of, and full on like panic starting to set in. I'm like, what did I do? How can I like break my bike?
Yeah, how am I going to get out of this?
Yeah. Like I'm telling you, like mentally, you're all those thoughts are going on in your head.
Oh,
like
for sure.
I was 100% convinced that 12 hours was barely possible. And I'm like, all I can hear is Scott's voice in my head, because Scott had already given me this ultimatum that if I didn't go sub 9, he was jumping off a building. And so I'm like, I'm trying to like temper Scott's expectations. I'm like, Scott, that was hard. Like that's
you guys lost a ton of confidence.
So much confidence. And I'm like, man, I'm such an idiot for thinking humidity was going to prepare me for this. Like I'm full on, like on the inside, I'm trying not to like. It still probably looked like I was super nervous because I was, but on the worst, even on the inside, even worse. I didn't sleep. I think I slept 4 or 5 hours the next 2 nights.
What a trip.
Dude, I'm telling you. And you're not sleeping because you're at altitude.
Yeah.
Next day, we go out to Pipeline Aid Station, which is that yellow kind of after power line.
Yep.
And then we did all that kind of like fast, flowy stuff to the bottom of Columbine. And that kind of settled me in. I was like, all right, there's at least a spot that I can hold 15 miles an hour relatively easily. It's not that bad. You know, it's going to suck after I've done all that climbing, but at least, okay, you know, I'm starting to get my wings under me from the altitude. I don't feel as bad. Probably a little false sense of security. I'm like, all right, I'm good. Maybe I'll be all right. So we finished that ride. It was like 15, 13 miles. And so that was huge, knowing just what to expect. And so then Curtis,
a bunch of other people out too. Like you see,
not really.
Okay.
Some,
Okay.
a couple guy. We were coming down Sugarloaf, or he was coming down Sugarloaf as we were going up. He's like, "Hey, Rich," and then I found him while we were riding. His name was Drew, good dude. But he was like, as we're going by, I'm like, "Hey, man," you know, like that was pre-ride stuff. And then so then we go to Curtis's house. He's like, "Oh, well, we're out here. We'll go show you Columbine." You just drive up to Columbine, and he's like, "You see that snow patch up there?" He's like, "That's basically where we're going." And you're just like, mother. And then you see this thing. Like, you see that?
Oh, yeah.
You look at this, and you're like.
It looks like it's just a page divider. You're like, it's not even a hill.
It's insane. And so we do that on Thursday. And then
you did Columbine before the race?
No, we did not do Columbine.
Okay. Do you wish you would have or no?
Yes and no. Yeah, honestly, and this is going to sound bad, Columbine's not bad until you get to, there's a part called the Goat Trail, and probably about where the red is called the Goat Trail, and it just goes steep, and it's loose, and at that point in the race, you're walking because there's so many people. There's people coming downhill as you're going up, and because people are starting to come back through whatever corral they started in, and so you're in a line, and then Matt Chan, the best way to describe it was, he's like, it's going to feel like a sled push, and you can always sled push a little faster. He's like, so don't be afraid to. If somebody's walking too slow, jump around them. But then sometimes you're so content at like, I'm just going to walk here for a second. But I honestly, and this is the point. So up to this point, I didn't really know, like I had this sheet that told me my splits I needed to have and all this, but there wasn't enough of them. Curtis had a better one that I wish I would have taped to my bike, but this is one they just gave us, and it was like, it had all the way from, if you wanted 8 hours, all the way to 12 hours. I wish I would only had the top two so I could have seen. But at this point, I'm like, I don't even know, because you're fighting like the whole time. You start the race, you're going up St. Kevin's, and it's a parking lot. At multiple times, like you'd hit somebody's tire, so you'd have to step right back in and try to keep going. On race day, St. Kevin's, Sugarloaf were nothing. Like, I'm like, I dreaded this and was so nervous. By day 3, I don't want to say I'm completely acclimatized to 10,000 feet, but I felt breathing-wise, felt fine. So I do think humidity did help a ton training for it. And I would take altitude over humidity any day. Any day. You can get ready you can be okay in altitude after a while, acclimatize to it. You can't acclimatize to humidity, in my opinion. Scott, you're a heavy sweater, so.
Yeah, I think the other thing too is the temperature.
And it was a beautiful day that day.
All you had to work against was altitude, because everything else was perfect for your performance.
Yeah.
Even the fact that it rained a little bit the day before, and the trail.
We started the race, it was 40 something degrees. It got up to 82, got back down to 40, got back up to 80. So like,
wow.
Yeah. So, I get through, we're talking race day now.
Where was the yard sale?
Oh, coming down power line.
Oh, okay.
Right about where that arrow is.
Man, I could have gone back.
Maybe a little higher. Yeah, I mean, I was lucky. And then looking back, my wheel is warped, which you can't really do to a carbon wheel. So something's not right. And
most people can't do it.
And the only time I can think that would have happened was there. So I was 25 miles in when that happened. I never really looked back because we rode to the start to kind of warm up. It's like a 3-mile ride, good like 400-foot climb. Like with biking, that's what I've learned. I need to get that first punch, or else I think I'm going to be dead for the rest of the ride. But the worst part was we had to ride home. Yeah. We had 3 miles home. So go through Powerline. I kind of talked about meeting those guys. They were awesome through the kind of to Pipeline. They had a different aid station before Pipeline. There's kind of like this main group you ride through. Pipeline's where the Potters were. They were incredible. But so the whole premise of this, and Scott can speak to this in a second, was I had the Garmin, and I'd shared my location with Scott. Every time I've pushed that button, it sends an email to Hillary to let her know I've ridden. Every single time.
While you're here.
Well, I'm here. We tested it.
While we were out there.
We tested it out there. Scott had it too. Race day, no text. Didn't send it to Hillary, didn't send it to Scott. I don't know what happened. I don't know why. I can read text messages, or it's reading it in my ear. I'm listening to a book. I was listening to Day of War. I couldn't start a new president because I knew I was going to be zoning in and zoning out. So I listened to Day of War, those King David books. Incredible. It was a perfect choice to do that, because I could there were parts where I've read the book 4 times, 5 times, or listened to it.
You were getting excited for a
so
part
I'm
to come up and
fired
get
up
bumped
about
yeah.
a battle scene or whatever, and then I could zone out.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I just turn it off because I'm like, I need to like chill out for a minute, going downhill especially. It was the perfect choice for that. But I get to
This would have been gangster rap and death metal for me, like just somebody yelling at me. You know,
I get to like pipeline, and Hillary's like,
we have video of this too.
Start your Garmin. We're not getting the updates. I was like, I did start it, and then I just take off. She was pretty mad, not mad, but she was like, "You were very mean to me." I'm like, "I'm sorry, I was not in the heads." I mean, you're 30 miles into this freaking grind session, and I'd known that those guys that I'd been riding with were behind because they'd stopped and they were coming through, and I knew I was trying to minimize as much time as I could. I had my bottles prepared with what was in there. We had I had a fanny pack that I would basically had a Ziploc bag full of the calories that I needed to get before my next aid station, and I'd written them out, and like Curtis had helped us with the math, and it was super helpful. Only problem is, in a race like that, you can't eat, and so luckily I had the little bit of forethought that I took, like the Cliff Blocks, like they're just like chews, and they're kind of they're all together, and luckily I had like 10 of those, and of the sleeves, the straws, and just stuck them in my fanny pack, like where a water bottle would go. Yeah. And when I couldn't eat anymore. Like you try to chew, like even like a Stroop waffle or any of those stuff, like my stomach was just like, nah, dude. And so I would just take the thing, chew it, and pull it off, put it in, and I would just suck on them for like 20 minutes. Yeah. And then same with some scratch gummies. I'd do the same. I had them in my pockets back here. And so I'm just trying to get as many, because I knew I had to get at least 80 to 90 carbs an hour.
And did you spend as little time as you planned at those stops, or did you ever?
Yeah, how much were you spending at the stops, I guess?
Minute top? No,
dang.
not even that.
It was much less than that.
No,
Holy crap.
It was at one point, there was only, I think, one point that I unclipped both feet. Every time I would basically leave, I think.
It was however long it took for everyone to do their job, basically.
Yeah. Somebody would take my trash.
It's like a pit
Somebody
stop.
would take my old
Exactly.
Ziploc bag. Somebody put a new one in, and then I'd take the bottles out. They'd put the new ones in, and we'd go. One bottle had either 100 or 50 carbs, and one had like an element or a relight in it, and I would just go.
That's amazing.
The one thing I would change is to have more liquid carbohydrate. There was a couple I was like, I'll just put 50 in these because it's an easy attempt, but I should have kept 100 in those just to like basically build a buffer, because it got so hard to eat. That was honestly the hardest part of that whole ride. Was my stomach felt like I had a freaking brick and so much gas just from, I don't know, altitude or whatever. But man, I was miserable stomach. Other than that, like I flirted with some cramps like in my hamstring, my adductor, and my calf. Part of the calf I think is where I wrecked. I have a big gash, not big, I have a gash on my calf. And every once in a while I'd be like, hey, I'm here. I'm here. And you just have to like stop for a second. I'd straighten my leg on the adductor or whatever. But for the most part, I never had any like bonks. There was a couple like you start feeling sorry for yourself, especially you go up Columbine. Columbine is, it's never gets super steep. And you're kind of like, okay, I can do this. Everybody's complaining about this. And then all of a sudden and it starts getting steeper, and there's just no road anymore. Like when it's hard pack road, you're just kind of like, just grind through it. And I would pass so many people on climbs and descents, and then I would get kind of on flats. I just would not push myself. If there was a group that I could ride with and we would draft, we would work together. But if they started to pull away, I'd be like, you know what, I'm good. Yeah. And so there's kind of this point after Twin Lakes. So Matt Shannon's great. He's yelling at me after Columbine. He's like, you got to eat more. I need you to eat. But he didn't realize I was taking some of these other things. And so Cherie's there. She's like, here, take a bite of peanut butter and jelly. And I took a bite, and it was just stale and like dry, and I'm like, I don't want that. And so then Matt's forcing cherry Coke down my throat. He's like, here, take a big pull of this, and hammer this. And so he's like, but I need you to eat. You got to eat. And I'm like, I'm trying, dude. I promise. And so you take off from there, and then there's this like, so in outbound you do this kind of like the only real single track is what you'd call single track out, and then coming in. So you don't have riders coming on single track at each other. They run you out the road and then up this boring ass straight. It's like on this plane right here, dirt kind of washed out in spots, just grind of it's not even that hard or that bad. Sun's out. I had like these arm sleeves at one point. When you start the race, you take them down. When it got hot, you put them back up because you got cold on a descent. And then at this point, I think it's the hottest point of the day. It's like 82 degrees. You're baking in what feels like the desert. Took them both off, and I was like, here, somebody can have them. Just pitched them on the side of the road. And it's just a grind. And luckily, I just found a guy that he was like, we were kind of the same-ish. The pace I probably would have ran, maybe I might have run a little bit faster, but it was probably about right for what I was doing. And we just kind of grinded up this hill, and then I passed him as we turned back onto what they call pipeline and made my way through there. But then the whole time mentally, you're like, all right, here comes, everybody's talking about, here comes power line, here comes power line, here comes power line, here comes power line. And you're just in your head, you're like, all right, I made it to this point, you know, like mentally, you're like, oh, I got to take in a bunch of food because it's kind of flattish, and this is a spot where you can kind of recover. And then you hit the road, and you're working your way back, and you can see power line, and you're just like, that bitch, you know, like it's coming. And it's, you hit it, you turn onto this road, and then it's a real gradual, and then all of a sudden it just goes, whoop, straight up like this. And you're like, everybody's like, oh, try to clean it, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you know what? I'm walking. So I unclip and just start walking. And I was to the point where my back was starting to get tight. The one thing I learned with the single speed is to stand more. You shift a little bit less than, or your reaction is most of the time with mountain biking to sit more because you need to have more weight on the back. Yeah. But in spots, especially road or some hard pack, stand a little bit. It saves your back, and that's what helped me immensely. So the single speed helped me a ton to learn that. But Powerline, man, it is a grind. And so what sucks is, like, it's straight up. And so Bennett's beside me filming, walking. And he's like, Rich, how you doing? I'm like, I'm fine, Bennett. You know, like, I'm good. And then I see Ben weaving in and out trying to get pictures, but he looks like Tumnus off of Chronicles of Narnia because he's, you know, he just looks like
in the woods.
Yeah, he's like in the woods all creepy, like trying to take pictures and stuff. So I'm like, in my head, I'm playing these games, trying to do whatever. Your calves are lit up. The bike is like stretched out. I'm pushing. I've got these like bike shoes that have no, like they're just, you're stuck like this. And so you're trying to like, you know.
Did you wear the hard ones?
I wore the hard ones. And so you're just like, you know, and everybody's saying, oh, the, you know, Powerline, blah, blah, blah. And so you finish it and you're like, all right, I'm done. No, you're not done. That's about where the purple meets the red. And then the rest of that, you ride out. And it's so on Powerline up, when you're coming in at about 75 to 85 or 80, whatever that is, then you ride the rest of the way. And it's another like 3 or 4 miles of just like, it's just steep enough that you can ride it, but not steep enough that you really should walk it. Yeah. And you want to walk it so bad, but you're just like, just keep grinding. Yeah. And luckily there's people along, like there's this lady at the top. She's like, hey, Rich, hey, we got Coke and we got water. We have electrolyte pills here at the top. Do you want anything? And I'm like, yeah, actually, I'll take all of it. And so I just hammer up 2 Dixie cups. I think they had like made it flat so you didn't have the bubbles in your stomach, and then water. And then she's like, you want an electrolyte pill? I'm like,
like everything on the menu. I would
and
like.
So she was.
I'll have what he's having.
Yeah. She was a lifesaver. And then you finally get up to the top there, and you're like, all right. And everybody talks about Hangerman's Pass, about how bad it is. It really like, so you come down Powerline, and you come down kind of that Sugarloaf rocky stuff, and it's fun. And then you hit the road, like a gravelish, hard pack gravelish road. Then you hit a main road. Takes you all the way. So you're like, all that you just gained, you lose it all back, almost to the bottom, not quite to the bottom. And then you start up that red orange. Yep. And that red orange is really, it's kind of like Pfeiffer Mountain up to my dad's. It sucks. Yeah. I've done it so much that it's like, I can do this all day. And then you get off the road and you're like, cool, it's all downhill mostly from here. And then that little patch of yellow right there is just the dirtiest, nastiest, thickest rock bed of shit. And you're already you're like, mother, it's awful. Like, so the last big hump, that yellow right there, it's just straight up and it's just rocky. And you're like, you've got to be kidding me. And then right at the bottom of between those 2 peaks right there, so there's some guy that was down there. He's like, you guys are doing great. You're 5 minutes ahead of a 9-hour pace. And I'm looking at my Garmin, and I'm like
way ahead.
20 minutes ahead of 30 minutes ahead
of that. What the heck?
And he was going off the 6:30 start that everybody had. So they don't really know when you started. That's the hard part about all this, is you don't know. So some guy on the top of COMM-MAYHEM, he's like, well, looks like 9 hours isn't possible. And in my head, I'm like what? You know, like I'm starting to panic a little bit. And then I'm like, yeah, what corral you in? And he's like orange or red or something. I'm like, oh, so he's like 10 minutes ahead of me, technically. And so I'm like, okay, so I'm still on, you know, like I can still hit this.
That was on the way home?
That was the way up on Columbine. I was walking behind him. But then what I'm talking about Hangerman's is Hangerman's. Those are 2 different stories. But then you get up to the top there, and like you kind of like I'd known I guess it was at the bottom of Hangerman's. I think I had 2 hours or maybe a little bit less or more. Either way, I was like, if I average 10 miles an hour, which is totally doable.
Yeah.
To this point, I've averaged, I think it was like 12.4. I'm like, I got this. Like I'm starting to like, you're starting to like.
So this is basically halfway.
No, this is
very end, right?
Hangerman's.
Oh, we're getting there.
We're
Okay,
almost
yeah.
to the final aid station. Curtis is like basically. Curtis told us this final aid station where that arrow is. He's like, you got 50 minutes from there, and I'm like, I got this. You know, like emotionally, you're like, it was pretty cool to like, hey, this is within reach. You know, like so, you dive down St. Kevin's. You're like, heck yeah, fly in, blah blah blah. And then you come down that yellow portion right there, and everybody's like, hey, the climb back into town's a bitch. And I'm like, whatever. You know, like we'd kind of, our Airbnb, you have to climb to get back to it. And so I'd done it. I'm like, yeah, whatever. And so you get down this yellow, and you're like, we're still going down. Why are we still going down? And you get into this like rock bed, kind of like dry creek bed.
Yeah.
And then you turn uphill. And it's like this nasty, loose rock bed climb. And then you hit a gravel road. And it just keeps, it's just like this the whole time. And it's not terrible. It's not great. You can sit some, you can stand some. And then I'm starting to play this game on my Garmin where it's like it's 103 miles. I'm like, I know it's 104. I'm like, but when did I push the button? You know, did I push it right at the start? I'm like, all right. I look at the guy next to me. It's mine's reading 103.9. And I'm like, I'm like, hey, what's your Garmin reading? He's like, 103.9. I'm like, where's the finish? Like, you can't see. Like, it's still.
Yeah.
So you get up.
We're almost there.
And it's at like 104 and something, and then it turns up, and I'm like, this is where the meeting was, like the riders meeting the day before, is right by this school, and then there's this huge just hump. It was 105.6 miles on my Garmin. You know, like somebody, like CrossFit messes up the math on the 5K, they mess it up on a 100-mile race, you know, so.
And that's insulting too at that point.
And it's just like, and this last climb's awful. Arthur, like, the story's pretty funny, but he was talking to one of the volunteers, and one of the volunteers is like, hey, you're almost there. The last hill, it's all downhill from here. Arthur used a couple of choice words. He's like, you better not be lying to me, basically. And this guy's like, I wouldn't lie to you at this point. Like, it's just up over that hill, you know? And so, man, it was pretty cool to come in and see and know that I'd made it. Curtis was waiting right there for me because he started, I think, 10 minutes ahead, and he was like 3 or 4 minutes ahead of me overall time-wise. And so, man, it was cool because, like, him being there, him kind of getting us all into it, and him basically being responsible for me getting that time. Like, if without Curtis, it's not possible. Yeah. Like, him helping the crew, helping, like, media guys to get, like, Scott can speak to this in a second, but Curtis, Dave Curtis, and Allie, his wife, his kids, everybody were awesome. Like, Allie was out there. She gave me a random, her and Hillary, she brought Hillary to the spot where she could see, like, it was, without them, it was impossible. So,
nothing like local knowledge.
No, but it was just cool to, like, have that. Yeah. He was waiting right there. As soon as I get it, like, get the medal. They put a medal on you as soon as you get there, and then I beat the 9-hour clock from 6:30. Yeah. They immediately give you a belt buckle. So you're just like,
did it.
Cool, I'm done. Let's go home,
check.
you know?
Yeah.
And then so we waited for Arthur to finish and to see him, you know, like he'd kind of tempered his expectations. He knew 9 wasn't probably in the cards, but sub 12. And so to see him get sub 12 was cool too.
Nice.
And man, but yeah, it was a cool moment. But Curtis saved these guys, saved me, saved all of us. Basically told him where I was going to be almost to the, like,
I mean,
minute.
It was perfect.
Within 2 minutes, I think, of each time, I was there.
He gave us times for the aid stations based on an 8:30, and Rich did 8:32. And so every single time he came through within, a couple minutes of give or take of when he was supposed to be there. And because the Garmin didn't send us an email, we had a paper map and a screenshot of Curtis's text message in order to find him. That was all we had. And then Curtis took us the whole route the day before and the day before that. So we did 2 days of location scouting to see where we could get to him. And it's not like the run. To some extent, Rich is able to get places faster than we are with the traffic and the like different routes we have to take. So it's hard to find him. Not to find him, but to get there in time. And
I can't wait to see it. 2 is 1 and 1 is none. The Airwave Mayhem Hybrid Pack gives you 1 HIIT mouthpiece and 1 endurance mouthpiece in our traditional Mayhem blue, so you're covered no matter the sport. 1 innovative technology, 2 performance-driven designs. For podcast listeners only, get the Mayhem Hybrid Pack 15% off at www.airwave.com/Froning. It's up there on the hardest things I've ever done, but it was a ton of fun. Now that I'm done, I'm like, I'll do it again. You know, like when I first finished, I'm like, I don't know if I want to do that again.
Where were the darkest hours?
Really, it's after Columbine. Top of Columbine, it's dark. Like, you're like emotionally, like you're sorry for yourself, and there's this point where you're walking and you're just in a line, and you look and you're like, oh, people are starting to come back down. Like that's where a turn is. And what happens is you turn there, and that's the end of your eyesight, and then it cuts back up here. And so then you're like, oh, no.
Keep going.
No, I got to – and you look way up there, and there's still people riding up. And you're like that's when I was really thinking, oh, I'm not – and this guy's talking about how he's not going to make his time, and I'm like –
You're freaking out.
I'm starting to freak out a little bit. And then coming down, like – and in that point, I really thought – well, I'd looked, and I saw it 4:35. Is what I had to get there by, and I think I got there by 4:32 or something like that. And so I negative split it back.
Yeah.
And so you don't realize how much time you make up. Like, I mean, Columbine takes an hour and a half, an hour and a half, hour 45. You come down it in like 20 minutes.
Yeah, right.
Like you are hauling.
Yeah.
In the back of it, like, so sorry, like I can't see those are grades. Like what the backside of Columbine's green, so the way back is way
I think
easier.
that's well, the backside of
negative.
Columbine is all downhill.
Yeah.
It's a negative. So basically that's
But you got to come back up it and like you do this whole thing in reverse, right? Or am I
basically
looking
if you're looking at it, you go out from the left.
Mm-hmm.
Start on
is
the left, you
middle.
start at the yellow. And you come up that red, the very red point, and then essentially think of it, you're going back the other way.
right.
So this
Got
is
it.
just a mirror image flipped open.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's the opposite. It shows you
So it's the opposite
down.
grades.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean you're hauling down.
Look at
there.
the top. Yeah. The
Got it.
top's
So
like the
Columbine
guy.
is halfway.
Columbine
I've been
is
looking at this the
halfway.
wrong
It's
way
your
the
turnabout.
entire time.
Yep. And so it's basically a mirror image
yeah.
of itself.
So what is the elevation? I had a couple questions.
You started around.
No, sorry.
Oh.
I want to know the bottom of Columbine. Obviously, at the top of Columbine.
I think it's somewhere around 3,000 feet. So you're looking at that. It's kind of blurry for us, but 90.
How many miles? How much coverage?
I think it's 8 miles.
Oh my gosh.
It's really. I'm telling you,
It's
until
abrupt.
you get to the goat trail, that red spot, probably where it gets red, it's not that bad.
My other question, how far do you think you walked this whole time? Like a mile or like a quarter mile?
I want to say probably to Columbine.
the whole thing.
The whole thing, probably 2 or 3.
2 or 3 miles.
Yeah,
And the
probably.
bike shoes, dude. That sucks.
Yeah, that's not fun.
Yeah,
I'm glad I wear socks. Usually I didn't wear socks. Here training, I'm glad I wear socks.
Yeah.
Next year, getting ready, I'll do more sled pushes.
Really?
Yeah, sled pushes would
'Cause
help
you were
you
walking
immensely.
so much, walking
help
uphill
you
and stuff.
immensely with that.
Yeah.
The other thing, shout out Curtis, he never unclipped.
Curtis never once unclipped. Transition, climbing, all
I
of
don't
it.
understand. How do you? Wait. so
Curtis
you walked.
is
He
2 or
never
3
walked.
miles. He never walked. How did he do his?
So at
his
his
aid
at the
station?
At his aid
station-
stations, his wife would be back here, and
Yep.
his kids would be
So
up
just
here.
hold the bike and he would
And
just.
No, he grabbed something,
throw it
and
out,
throw something, and then at the
catch
next,
it, and just keep going.
he'd get something
Curtis is a
from his
gangster.
wife and trade whatever on the move, and then he'd get a little further up and he'd give something and take something from his kid.
He did this all on the move.
Yeah,
just-
and he had them
man.
put together with a rubber band. All of his food was rubber banded the day before, and then he had the drinks.
Yeah,
or
the one
whatever.
thing I got to figure out is better
Packaging
nutrition.
stuff.
No, better nutrition that doesn't mess my stomach up. That was
Yeah.
the one thing. When I finished, I was like, I never want to do this again.
I
'Cause
never
I
want
don't
to
want
have
my
another.
stomach to.
I never
hurt
want to
this
have
bad.
another processed sugar ever. Yeah.
Yeah, dude. And I didn't eat anything that night. I had an elk sausage from that cow we killed. We had some elk brats. I didn't eat anything else. I had a
Wow.
bunch of like Spindrift and
Yeah.
Topo Chico, like
Just water. You just want
and like
water to, like,
bubbles
flush
to
your-
like
Yeah,
you know,
flush your
help my
guts
gut.
out.
And then I didn't eat anything yesterday until like 2:00. My stomach was awful.
Yeah.
It felt so bad. So that's
Try to figure something.
two
that doesn't hurt your
things. Two
stomach so
things
much.
the only 2 things I would change about everything is getting out there Tuesday. Tuesday would give me a little bit better, I think. Just feel better by Saturday.
Yeah.
I think I could feel almost like
When did you get the Thursday?
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
And the other thing is nutrition, figuring out
Mhm.
something that didn't hurt my stomach that bad. Because other than that, man,
Yeah.
it was cool. Like everybody's like, oh, it's beautiful. You take it all in. The only memory I have of like thinking of something was beautiful was coming down after power line, coming down and looking back and looking at Turquoise Lake, and I'm like, oh, that's pretty. And then just at no point, like if I did it now, so the next goal would be to get a bigger belt buckle once you do it 10 times.
Okay.
You have to make it 10 times. And so
Sub
now
9, 10 times or just
no,
do
sub
it? Yeah.
sub 12 10 times. All right, I don't even know if it has to be sub 12, whatever the cutoffs
Finish
are.
it.
Finish it. So that's kind of a next sneaky goal. I don't know if it would happen do it 10 years in a row. I would like to do that. It's 1,000 miles.
Yeah.
But now the pressure to get sub 9 isn't there, but I still don't think I could be okay. Just like doing it sub 12 would be fun.
Yeah.
Like you get somebody and just ride together the whole time.
Yeah.
It could be kind of fun actually.
With the training that you did, for sure.
Yeah, I was over prepared for 12 hours. 9 hours is like,
yeah.
I mean, 8.5 was it's a pretty good cushion on nine hours, but it's
for frame of reference, like when we did ours, we didn't train anywhere near as well as we should have, like based on what I've seen Rich do. But I mean, we were not just stopping; we were stopping frequently and for a while. You know, like stretch, and your back hurts, and your legs hurt.
Yeah, but your body, I'm telling you, I built up to it pretty solid.
The thing that I learned, that I learned from the triathlon, the triathlon that we did,
The one I beat you in?
the one that you beat me in.
Yeah.
I did, and these guys, Scott was there for sure when I was at the transitions. Like I made a point that I'm going to show up at the transitions and I'm going to do whatever I want. So I would stop and I'd take a drink of this and drink of that, or I'd take a snack. Okay, I guess I'll get started on the bike, or I guess I'll get started on the run.
Nope.
And I did the triathlon getting ready for the games. Like you can push the transitions a lot more than you think. You don't really need that rest. Like he did so much training and you kind of know. And as long as you can make the switch, like you're saying about Dave Curtis, like just making the switch real quick, not unclipping is nuts.
Yeah.
But like him standing for like a minute, like it does sound nuts, but it's almost like you just want to keep moving.
Yeah.
Like if you just stay moving, you're just hurting yourself by not doing anything. Yeah. If you just, even if you are going easy and you're getting moving, like you're going to want to go, okay, I can pick it up a little bit. I got the food, I'll have a snack. And even if you're going slow pedaling, you're having a snack, like you're moving you're covering some distance.
The only 2 times I stopped, other than those little transition areas, I had to piss twice.
Yeah.
And then they were like
45-second
pisses.
Yeah.
Like they were full on. So, I mean,
no
the weather.
number twos?
No, at no point did I have to do that, but I had to pee.
Really?
Twice.
I saw a guy at Twin Lakes. He gets off his bike and he starts waddling.
Oh, you
behind
see
the
several
tents,
people
and
shuttle off into the woods.
Matt Chan's like, well, he's about to go poop right there. It was probably, I mean, we saw him do it. It was.
I got a
50
little
yards
past
from the
that
tent.
transition. I'm like, I gotta pee. I'm just going. Like
Wait,
it's
so-
hurting my stomach.
This guy pooped 50 yards from the tents at Twin Lakes.
What do you do about wiping?
Gotta do what you
Did he
gotta do,
wipe?
man.
Do you have
I
I'm sure
imagine he
people
had
brought some
wipes.
stuff.
I hope
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, I'm sure.
That'd
he
be
did.
horrible.
Yeah, I mean,
How far in were you when this happened?
this was when I think he had come down Combine probably.
Okay, so just over 60,
he was
70
over
miles, maybe
halfway.
60.
Yeah.
Could you imagine riding with like shit on you for the rest
So
for
bad.
40 miles?
If people are on the fence, do it. Like it's incredible. It's a
Yeah.
cool event, cool people, cool history behind it. And community was great. Like I said, you have a jerk in every couple hundred people in everything that you do, but for the most part, everybody was super nice. Man, and it's just cool.
Yeah.
Like it's a cool thing to say you've done, and it was a really cool event. You're gonna have to train for it. Like there's no 2 ways around it, but you can do it. Like you could finish it. But man, it was fun.
It's
fun.
Adam from Specialized said, when we put out the video, he's like, it's too bad a lot of people in the CrossFit community aren't going to understand how hard it is, how cool it is to go under 9 hours.
Yeah, that's a different animal.
Yeah.
I should specify.
He said,
going sub 9, you're gonna have to train your butt off.
He said it's the equivalent of a non-runner doing a marathon in under 3 hours, but this has 4 times the distance, so more opportunity for a bike failure, for a body break.
Oh, I mean, you got to have some luck in there, like 100%. Yeah. And like I said, sub 9, like now we're talking different. Like sub 9 is different. It's hard.
Yeah,
mentally,
that's a good way
physically,
to say it,
like training. I'm telling you, every day I took bike on vacation. I took, found trails in random spots, hopped on the road. I rode the bike loop, the lake loop in Madison too many times to count. Like you have to, like you're gonna have to put some. But I mean, if you're training for, it can sub a CrossFit session. Like you're just gonna have to do it. You're going to have to throw in some long rides in there. There's going to be days when it's freaking raining outside, and instead of hitting the trails, you just go get some miles on the road. And luckily where we're at, we got a ton of like this mountain. I can't tell you how many times I climbed this freaking mountain, but it helped.
Yeah.
Like, there's no doubt I was passing people on hills. I could be a better pedaler, probably like a flat ground pedaler, but climbing wise, I think I was as prepared as I could have been for how big I am.
Well, and I think probably easy for you to lose sight of this, but I mean, like even with a lot of training, like some people 9 hours is just science fiction.
Yeah, it's just
you know what I
hard.
mean?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I had a decent amount of bike fitness.
Yeah,
and
I've
like
got some decent
12
genetics
hours was good for me.
somewhere.
Yeah, you're pretty
Yeah.
good.
I mean, think about how good Arthur is.
Truth.
Arthur's a really good rider.
He's
And he
really
does endurance
he's
stuff.
better. He's a better rider than most people know.
Yeah.
You
Oh,
know,
yeah.
and he went 10.5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and Adam said he raced for 20 years and he never went sub 9 at Leadville.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I mean, Thad did it on single speed, however, I will say. But
Oh, he did Leadville on a single speed?
Yeah. I think his fast was like 9 and some change. I would not.
God.
Curtis was talking about doing it. And I'm like, no part of me wants to. Like, I like a single speed now. And, you know, I'm not riding a single speed. I enjoy it at Cane Creek. It's perfect for it.
Yeah.
You don't think, you can ride hard. This, I like science fiction.
Yeah. Never gonna happen.
It just wouldn't be fun. You'd be walking a lot because
Yeah.
the gear you'd have to be in for climbing, or when you're on the flats, you're just not doing anything productive. So it would not be fun. So, but yeah, I would say do it. You know, I think it's a cool endeavor to, if you can get in. I would love to some way figure out, you know, with what we did with First Descents, doing a Mayhem mission team, you know, like getting 10 spots.
Yeah.
And people have to raise a certain amount of money towards Mayhem mission.
Yeah,
and
I
we all
love
do
that.
it together. And I think it would be incredible.
Serious question, not commercially. You loved your bike, or would you
Dude,
change another
no,
one?
the Specialized Epic World Cup. I know it's a high dollar bike. Dude, that thing is awesome.
Were a lot of people riding it, or like?
Yes, I saw several out there.
Yeah.
I saw a lot of older Epics as well too, like the one I trained on. So I trained. Luckily, I have the privilege of I had a 2019 Epic, I think, and then my current World Cup Epic, and I trained a ton on my older Epic while the other one got painted. Technar did incredible. Had a lot of people talking about the color
Nice.
paint job. And you almost need two bikes rotating because of the
How much
miles
miles
you
you're
put
putting
on
on
them, and
them.
you're going to have to service them. And I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I've learned a lot, actually.
Yeah.
But I take it to Thad or take it to Canny Fork and have them work on it because I don't trust myself. So I would have two bikes in rotation when one was out. And now that I have that single speed, I have three bikes in rotation. And so,
And the stump jumper.
and stump jumper. And, you know, I've got a lot of bikes now. I'm a bike guy now.
Shout out to
Yeah,
Specialized.
thank you, Specialized. I could not have done it without those guys for sure.
What, did you go to their aid station? How did that work out? Like,
Never saw him. Adam was that.
Oh, okay.
Adam helped with Chan, and
Yeah.
so he a couple times made sure the chain, everything was good, tires were good.
Okay, so you didn't
but
have to.
I didn't have to. I didn't had no bike problems other than that wheel, but that's
Man.
probably 1000% user error.
Yeah.
Adam brought me a new rotor because TSA, I'm pretty sure, bent my rotor. That was a mental thing too. Once I got that on there and saw it spin, I'm like, oh, I've been riding with this thing on like the brakes on basically.
Yeah.
So that helped a ton.
And you said, yeah, I mean, for people who don't know, I'm good for at least one ski mountaineering trip a year with the Chans. And they're just like, they're so
incredible.
handy at
handy
everything.
and enthusiastic at the same. Like
Well, and Cherie, for me at least, Cherie is just so calming.
calming. She's like,
Yeah.
here, take a bite of this peanut butter and
Yes.
jelly. Here,
Yes.
do you need some ibuprofen? I'm like, yes, give it all to me. And then I like chew through an ibuprofen. I'm like, that was a horrible idea, you know, because like, you know, that's a couple things you don't think of. There's a lot of like what we should do after, if anybody wants to do this. We've talked about doing kind of an ebook of what I did.
Yeah.
You know, like my
That's a great
bikes
idea.
with my fitness, because you know that's one of the things too. Is, you know, everybody talks about, oh, you're too big, top heavy, blah blah blah. When I was talking to Thad, and Thad has been helpful with this. He was like, dude, keep your upper body strength and keep your core strength, because that's with bikers, you can kind of just see them kind of fold in as it gets
Yeah.
in. I felt great, but towards the end, like my core was shot because you're pulling up with your legs a lot. And so my core, by the end of it, I was starting to get like little like fat man cramp a little bit, like, you know, middle
Yeah.
school cramp right here. And I'm like, ooh, you know, like, and I'm 80 miles in. So
Yeah.
it was eye opening. It was the first, I mean, that's the longest event I've ever done in my life. But it was cool. I'll definitely be back.
I'm coming.
Coming.
I'm jealous, man. Insanely jealous.
Yeah.
And congratulations. That's
It was cool. It was, like I said,
goes without
thank you.
saying, but
it was
amazing.
fun. It was, like I said, it was definitely one of those things that you're just like, oh, it's done. Cool. I'm done. You know, like what's next? But, yeah.
Where does the belt buckle go? Is it going in the trophy case, or like, you know, wear it?
I think I'll make it. No, I probably won't wear it. I think I'll make a some type of
Shadow box. On
shadow
there.
box with the map. Like
Yeah.
these guys marked up the map, kind of with, it's like a big map that has all the different checkpoints and aid stations, and these guys kind of marked it down, and it'd be kind of cool to put that in their
Heck yeah.
memorabilia. So I probably won't ever wear it. I'm not that, you know, we have our Froning Farms belt buckles, but you
Yeah.
know, this is kind of like
yeah.
a trophy. So,
Yeah.
or it might go in my sock drawer, like my medals, but who knows? I put it in there because that's just what I do.
Yeah,
'Cause I'm
so
like,
where
I don't
things
lose it.
go,
Trice
yeah.
won't get it. 2 games medals just sitting in the like far left corner. I'm like, I should probably get these out, huh? So You know, like
It's a safe spot.
it is a goal. Like you always look for, like, yeah, the gold medal is what we were looking for. But once you attain it, you're like, it's just another thing. Like,
It's a thing.
Now I have the memory. I have the, like,
Sure.
Yeah.
you know, just you can't take that from me. Like this could go away, but you can't take that. Like I've done it, so it's pretty cool.
Man, that's awesome. Scott, when can we watch it?
Hopefully sometime
These guys need a
in
break.
September.
These guys need a break. Yeah.
even if I wasn't gonna have like a week of vacation and stuff, I'm still trying to make this a little more production value because it is such a cool accomplishment.
Yeah.
And with interviews and stuff.
He wants to interview like Thad and some of those others that are,
So-
you know, like were instrumental in it.
Yeah, it'll be
Like
a
a
little bit
true
of a wait, but
documentary.
it'll be worth it.
Yeah.
Did you were you able to fly the drone? Long story.
No, not a long story.
You weren't supposed to, but you did.
Yeah,
He found me randomly too.
we'll go with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why? Because it's like parks and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I will say this, at the meeting they said don't fly it in town, and we did not do that.
Okay. Good.
Because you didn't ask for permission anywhere else, so
No,
You're
but there were people launching them like
there were drones
everywhere,
everywhere,
and
bro.
so I was like, okay, I think we're good.
there were
And
drones everywhere.
yeah, he left to go up to Columbine, and I launched a drone to get general footage of people, and I found Rich
sick.
when I was doing it, and so I flew until I lost signal. But yeah, it was good.
Right on.
Yeah.
Video should be pretty epic. Bennett and Ben had to run up power
Power
line and nearly killed themselves for those shots. So hopefully they turned out
Did
well.
they get any of us coming down it or no? Because
No.
that's dude. If there's one spot we could figure out, I saw somebody with a real small GoPro.
Yeah.
You seen those? That's what we
Yeah.
need. Because he's like, "Can I put a GoPro on you?" I'm like, "I'm not carrying any."
Well,
extra
I had a
weight."
feeling you weren't. I was like, hey, there's nowhere good to put that, right? And he's
We-
like, no.
We need to get one of those smaller ones, and I'll
Yeah.
carry it next year because, dude, there's some spots, especially the descents that you don't get to see because we're going so slow on the climbs that you could see.
Yeah.
Like Bennett was walking with me.
Mm-hmm.
But the descents, like, and the chaos that goes on in some of those spots was pretty crazy. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, people are like, I'm flying by people like they're standing still because they're just like on the brakes, you know,
Yeah.
and have a screw loose. So,
Having done it now, I'm sure we could cover it better.
Yeah.
But I don't
Yeah.
know that you could with 4 people.
no, with 4
like
people.
I can't really describe how hard it is to actually beat you from place to place, which
Right.
sounds crazy because you're in a
on
car.
a bike, but
But it
there's
takes
a
20 minutes
roundabout
to
way
drive
and
from
traffic,
power
Yeah,
and there's
he's
so
like-
many people on the course too, like helping and crewing and
Yeah.
volunteering. Just random people like, "Hey, need water?" I'm like, "Sure, thank you." You know, because I'd run out of water at one point. Some little girl gave me a water bottle, and you're just like, "Take your trash," you know. You feel awful, but you're like, everybody else is throwing their trash. You
I'm
know,
sorry.
because it's just
Yeah.
right there. But
Yeah.
man, it was a cool event. Like I said, bike community, cool community, super welcoming. Man, it was. I can't tell you how cool it was. Just random places in the middle, like, "Hey, Rich, good job, Rich." You know, like as I'm rolling through aid stations, you know, like cheers for my name. And that was one story I was saying. I'm climbing up, and so you kind of like you pass a bunch of people. You might get passed by 1 or 2, but then you catch them back up. And then you pass one, like, and then you just kind of like jockey. So there was like 5 or 6 guys and girls that I was with throughout the day. And then finally some guy, we're coming up Hangermans, which were almost like, this is the last big climb of the day. And he goes, "Hey man, why does everybody know your name?" He's like, "Every time we ride through somewhere, they just keep saying your name." And I'm like, "You ever heard of CrossFit?" He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "I competed in CrossFit for a long time."
Yeah.
And so we just kind of like left it at that. But it was just funny. And I'm
The
like,
best was at the expo though.
"Oh yeah, the best of the
That was
expo." We're
that was my
walking-
favorite part
walking
of the
through,
whole
and
week.
Scott's with me. Of course, he loves this. He's like, "Hey man, you on YouTube?" I'm like, "Yeah, there's a couple videos." And he's like, "I watched your Leadville prep video."
Oh yeah.
He's like, "I was just Google or YouTubing Leadville
Leadville.
videos," and that's all he knew.
yeah.
That's awesome.
And so I'm like, "Cool, man."
That's
I'm like,
cool.
he's like, "Well, what's like, how'd you get so many views and stuff?" And I'm like, "Well, I competed in CrossFit," and kind of just left it at that. He goes, "CrossFit?" He goes, "Nobody over here does CrossFit." He worked at the tent too.
Yeah.
The guy goes, "Oh yeah, I do some CrossFit." And it's like explaining the gym and blah blah blah. And I go to leave. I'm like, "What's your names?" And shake their hands. He goes, "What's your name again?" I said, "Rich." He goes, "The Rich Froning?" And I was like, "Technically, there's 3 of us." He's like, "Oh my!" Like freaks out. And I'm like, "Yeah." So it was kind of Scott loved it.
It
He
was
ate
like
it up.
it's like a life goal for me to always have people that recognize
Hunting community.
you from,
Yeah. Whatever.
They don't know
is.
about the CrossFit, but they've
Yeah.
seen that video.
Yep.
Which
That's
was
cool,
that was
yeah.
super cool.
Yep.
I've seen, yeah, I guess, I mean, I've watched like random YouTube videos of like people that I don't know they do. And you just look up, like he said, he looked up Leadville. Like I've looked up just other stuff. And then someone
Find
pops
out
up, I
they
go,
know something
"Oh,
else.
Yeah.
So that was cool. But it's all over. Time for next year, I guess.
Oh man,
On to the next one,
carry it
BCS
with you for
Classic.
a while.
Yep.
I don't know. I mean, like, and you've done so many amazing things. Maybe it's different, but I remember just like a feeling of being bulletproof for like there was a long tail on it where I was like, man, if I can do that,
Yeah.
I can do it a lot.
No.
It's
It's
the
I need
opposite.
something else
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Like, not that it leaves a hole.
I feel
You know,
I feel
like-
worthless. If I don't have like
Yeah.
a something, I'm
Something
sure
to
you're the
aim
same way,
for,
yeah.
you know? Like,
That's cool.
Yeah, me too. I was just joking about what you
It's
guys.
cool.
Yeah,
No, I
just
wish
making
I
sure.
wish I could ride a high.
I was
like
I was
accomplished
baiting you
something.
into that.
Yeah.
Just to make
But
sure.
I feel like when if like I do anything that's like cool, I finish it, I go,
all right,
what do I do now?
What do I go
Yeah.
do now? Yeah.
I'm really
I mean,
bored.
For me now, it's like elk hunting.
Yeah,
So that's
yeah.
the next, like,
Exactly,
all right,
yeah.
I'm going to shoot my bow this afternoon.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to start getting ready for that. I'm going to start doing some elk prep workouts and then BCS Classics. I'm like,
Yeah.
all right, yeah, we got to get in
Have
shape.
stuff to
I got to
do,
get some
yeah.
CrossFit shape back. And so, yeah, I mean, yes, proud, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
Couldn't have
I
done
get
it
it
with,
though. No, you guys hold
couldn't
a
have
high
done it with
standard.
a lot of other people's help either.
Yeah.
Like, that's not a standalone deal. There's no way I could have done that by myself. And so I appreciate all those people, anybody who watches this. But yeah, now it's kind of like,
What's next?
what's next? So
All the people on
it
Instagram
sucks.
were asking, "What's next?
I don't know. Maybe
BCS.
this again. But yeah, BCS is next. Hunting is next.
What's the next big new thing?"
There's that guy. Scott was all about this, but there's that guy Ross Edgley who holds all the records for like
Oh,
longest
yeah.
distance swims in open water.
Oh,
So
yeah.
he wants to
Swam
hang
around
out with you.
Great Britain.
All right. We wanted to swim across
Dale Hollow.
to Alcatraz.
Oh,
Oh,
heck yeah.
yes,
Wasn't that the
one you
yeah.
wanted
It
to
was
do?
Alcatraz.
Was it
How
Alcatraz?
far is that?
It's
It's
only
not
like a
that
mile.
far, but it's
Oh.
cold.
Yeah, it's
And
cold and it's sharky.
That's
and
on the
there's
whiteboard.
boating lanes. And
It's sharky.
yeah,
Yeah, the
so
sharks. Would
let us.
keep
How
me
about you
from
guys let
doing
us
it.
know
I
what you
wanna
want us
do
to do next? I think long-term goal is. I mean, it's a 9-year goal is to
Yeah.
get the the Plata Grande. Is that what they called it?
I
How
believe
much
so.
bigger of a belt buckle is it?
Who
than that?
cares? It's
Yeah,
bigger.
I mean, I'm just saying, like it is bigger.
Who cares? Yes, it is
not
bigger.
like this dinky little thing.
Yeah.
You got to be able
Yeah.
to eat off of it, or if it's not a belt buckle.
No, I mean, there's a 20-year buckle, a 30. I don't know. If
Oh,
those aren't.
my goodness.
Those
The
aren't where I want to
30
be
year is next year.
next year because it'll be
is-
the only one.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were like,
There's
we have to
two
make
peop-
they
I
have to
think
make
two
a new
people.
belt buckle because
Cool.
but the 20 years impressive. I think a 10 would be cool.
Yeah.
And just so
I would like to.
understand-
Here's my next. I guess I want to bring some people along.
Yeah.
I want people to do it.
Yeah.
With like love doing it with Arthur. Love doing it with Curtis. Love that we kind of like have this brotherhood now. That like, hey, we helped each other. We did it. We did it together.
Yeah.
And that was cool. Like we kind of had this moment in the garage where we're taking our bikes apart and we're like, hey, this was freaking cool. Because I mean,
Yeah.
we talked almost every day.
Yeah.
And so it would be cool to bring others along
Totally.
to do that. There's something about that, you know, like there was a team aspect to this that I like. You know, I didn't get that when I got a little bit of that when we were competing at semifinals for age group, but I was like trying to get the other guys in.
Yeah.
But I just left that hole of like, it was kind of an individual effort. This was a team effort, like crew, people
Yeah.
helping. Like there's just something about that I
Yeah.
enjoy more than it's just me out there on CrossFit competition field. I don't know, just different.
Love that.
So yeah, I guess that'd be the next goal. Bring 5 people along next year. You know,
Recruiting.
so the hard part is getting in. So I'd love to like figure out a way to get Mayhem Mission to be one of those partner sponsors. You know, I think it'd be a cool thing.
So we need 5 people to ride Leadville and 1 teammate for Angelo. And we got a big
There we
year
go.
coming.
Cool. All right, that's side B.